In today's Entre Nous, we're discussing the art of hanging out in France. And for more on this, I'm joined on the set by Solange Mougin. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Jenny.
So you're focusing specifically on something that's called in French un tiers-lieux. What exactly is that?
Well, un tiers-lieu is the literal translation of the sociological concept of a third place. And it is a term that, interestingly enough, is increasingly used here in France in French. Now, what exactly is a third place and why are they important? Well, third places are essentially anywhere you go to socialize in public. This notion of third place was first introduced by the American sociologist Ray Oldenburg in his book Great Good Place in 1989. And he argues when it comes to social environments, there are the first places, which is home, the second places, which is work. And he says in a UNESCO article as well, that a third place is where you meet friends, where neighbors share news, where business is done, and where strangers start talking to each other. Essentially, they're a library, an art space, a plaza, a cafe, a bar, a swimming pool, a mall, a community center. It's where community is made. Now, of course, Oldenburg and his co-author Karen Christensen, they did not create third spaces and places. The ancient Greek agoras, tea and coffee houses are centuries-old examples. But putting this term third places on these spaces has helped us analyze their central role in creating community, exchanging ideas, and also bolstering democracy.
Right. This is so important today in our modern digital world where gathering places are actually quite rare.
Yeah, they are becoming increasingly rare. We all know this. Social interactions are not as common as they once were. To reference the old American sitcom Cheers, places where everyone knows your name and everyone is welcome, well, they are not as common anymore. Take the pub or the bistro. Less alcohol consumption is, of course, excellent, but a pub a day closes in England and Wales. That was last year, a pub a day. Same for France. Its bars and cafes went from 500,000 in the 1900s to 200,000 in 1960 to less than 40,000 today. 60% of French villages no longer have a shop or a gathering place. But sometimes the locals in these villages, they create one.
There's nothing else in the area but the co-op. There was a bar years ago, but it closed down, even for hikers passing through. They come in and have a coffee.
The workshops are done by members. They share their knowledge, be it Spanish or English lessons, sophrology, repair cafes, fixing appliances, and bicycles.
Now, studies have shown that fewer places to hang out, it has an effect on how people view one another, how happy they are, and also how they vote. The Center for Economic Research in France found that in areas, particularly in rural ones, where bar tabac, bars close, there has been actually an increase in national rally support. And when one reopens, those voting tendencies actually, for the far right, they actually go down. The same pattern has been seen in the UK with UKIP, for example. So there is this political connection between local community decline and a rise in radical politics, as well as studies on happiness, health, and longevity, which all can help when there is community.
Right. So in Europe and France, there actually have been efforts to try and safeguard these third places. Tell us about that.
Yeah, there have been. Europe's been focusing quite a bit, actually, on how to transform the epitome of a third place, the library. It wants to make its 65,000 libraries still relevant, even if people are reading fewer books. 100 million people visit a library in the EU every year. And sometimes it is to read, but sometimes it's for things like workshops and games.
They don't shush us. It's my hobby to come here, to read and play games.
If you have to put a name on it, we're a bit like tomorrow's library, where we try to take into account our visitors' daily lives, their needs, the participation of citizens.
Now, libraries are not the only third places where there are these efforts. Post-COVID, France created a program called Nouveaux Lieux, Nouveaux Liens, and it helped finance some 300 tiers-lieux, these places. That has ended, but it and an interministerial mechanism to promote and help finance these places has helped immensely, even if it is important to note that the 2026 budget that finances these places was nearly cut entirely. Nonetheless, according according to France's Observatory for third places, there are 3,500 of them in France, and some 62% are actually in rural areas, with most of them being run by associations. And these tiers-lieux have, in French, become somewhat synonymous as well with cool places to hang out. They're often temporary, often in buildings that would otherwise have been vacant. Events like Nuit Blanche, the yearly and cultural event in June in France, they're often held in these tiers-lieux, or they're alternative gathering spots where everyone can come together.
Right. So this concept, this word tiers-lieux, is really starting to become more and more part of the French lexicon, and more of these spaces are popping up. But what are some other words for hanging out in French?
Well, I've made a non-exhaustive list for us of hangout terms. The most used is the verb se retrouver, to get together. But there's also traîner, which actually means drag, to traîne something. But here it means to traîne ensemble, or to be together. There's sortir, to go out, which you actually have to be careful about, because while it really means literally to exit, it can also mean we are a couple, as in on sort ensemble. Then there is the English, their English inspirations with squat and chill, and of course glander, which means doing nothing, potentially together. The final two I don't use very much, but colleagues told me that I absolutely must include them. There's zoner, to hang out aimlessly, and the slang s'attraper, which means to catch, as in we'll catch each other later. So there are many ways to say let's hang out. You just have to find the time and the place.
Yeah, Solange, well, thank you so much for that look at the tiers-lieux, the third place. Et on s'attrape, okay?
Yes.
We'll catch you later. Catch you later. Don't forget, if you want to catch any of our previous Entre Nous, you can always do that on our website. That address is france24.com.